a lot of people that will argue with me about that say, well, I get nervous about that. It's like, I know it's the norm to have credit cards and to have car payments and everything. The sense of freedom that you get, the actual physical freedom you get from being debt free allows you to breathe and grow, especially when you have a business. I mean, I know you're getting a taste of that now.
Fire, baby. It feels awesome. Today, we're going to be talking with my friend John Pajak from Chicago, Illinois area. And we're going to talk about how we can take control of our finances in our business, in our personal lives. John loves talking budgets, finances, and welcome back to the program, Mr. Pajak. How you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, Paul. Thanks for having me back on. And you're right. I love talking about budgets and numbers and all the things that you need to know on the backside of your business, financial wise.
Yeah, and I want to give you a compliment. Let me adjust my camera here. We're on YouTube, so let me get this figured out. There we go. You gave a speech at the LCR Summit in Louisville, and Stanley Dirt Monkey Genetic was sitting right next to me, taking notes, asking questions, complimenting you on how important these financial components are in the industry. Jonathan Potoshnik was right over my shoulder asking insightful questions. It was a really cool moment to see you shining in front of the stars in our industry, and that third-party validation from Stan of being like, John, this information you're sharing about how to price your services and why to price them this way, the message needs to get out there to the industry, because most guys are winging it and they're not charging enough and they don't understand their numbers.
I agree, and yeah, it was very flattering to get that feedback. You know, not only from Jonathan Potoshnik, but from Stan Genetic too. That's it's humbling, but at the same time, it's very. You see these two guys that are extremely successful in the green industry, and to get praise from them was. I can't describe it in words, but you're right. There's so many business owners, there's so many guys out in the green industry, as well as the rest of the world, that don't understand their numbers, and they're basically just kind of it's like wet spaghetti. They're kind of throwing it to the wall to see what sticks, and then they're like, well, that works, so let's just go with that. And instead of having a system or thinking logically through what it actually costs them to help set their pricing for their services. But then on top of that, it's like, what do you want to achieve? Because if you don't have goals set in place to aspire to something, you could quickly fall into the fact that your business is just either sustaining itself, or it's not. If you don't have those goals in place, it won't achieve anything else other than sustaining itself and then paying out what it's told to do. So it's not only is it important to know what your numbers are, but on top of that, have the goals set. So whatever it is you want in your personal life and what you want for your business, you have to achieve those things. You have to have them written down so that it has a plan and you could direct the ship in that direction.
Yeah, let's start with the personal side of things. I remember a few years ago, you came down. This was to my old apartment in Atlanta, because from then I moved to a different place, and now I live in a whole different state. Mm-hmm. But when you came down, you were kind of showing me some of your spreadsheets and the intentionality that you and your wife have with your personal finances, and I was just blown away by your personal budget, and it's something I've gotten better and better and better at. But walk us through how do we win with our personal budget and our personal saving and investing and at home before we get into the business.
Yeah, and that, Paul, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's really important. Because in order to have a successful business, you have to get your house right. Mm-hmm. You have to get your personal affairs in order, because if you are really sloppy in your personal life, more than likely it's going to be even more challenging in your business, because you're not going to have any structure, you're not going to have any direction. So when it comes to personal finance, I've been doing that part I've been doing a really long time. So it's like, breathing for me. Mm-hmm. To start out, you have to understand what you're making, what your household is bringing in. So if you're single, Obviously, it's what your job provides for you. If you're married or you're in a relationship, hopefully you're married if you're in a relationship, but and you're sharing finances, it's like, okay, well, what do I make? What am I bringing in per month? And what is my wife bringing in per month? And any and all forms of income. So if you both have one single job, or if you have multiple ventures, you just need to know what your household's bringing in. Then you have to understand, okay, all the bills, that you have, your mortgage, utilities, just the cost of living expenses. Okay. I know that I pretty much live debt free in my personal life. I do have a mortgage, but other than that, we don't have consumer debt. We don't have, any other forms of debt, student loans and things like that.
Yeah, we're similar in that. I'm debt free. I rent my apartment, so I don't have equity in a mortgage, or not equity in a mortgage, equity in a house, and I obviously don't have a mortgage, but I'm debt free, and it's awesome. So I don't know anybody nothing, baby.
Yeah, and congratulations. I know that just happened recently, and I don't know if you've shared that with people, but it's an amazing feeling. I know it's got to be feeling great for you right now.
Yeah, it's awesome. So
so
it feels wonderful.
Yeah, personal budgets, those are really easy for me, and they could be super easy for you as well, because really know what your income is, and then going out the door, every dollar should have a place. Mm-hmm. So I don't care if it's pennies. Every penny in your bank account, every penny that you have coming in should have a place to go. Now, whether that's, paying all your mortgage, your utilities, your rents, all those things, your food, your, fund money, okay, investment money, take care of the basics first and then move out from there. Like you start out with making sure you have a roof over your head, making sure you have a vehicle to get back and forth to work, to make sure that you have food on the table and clothes on your back. Those are the bare minimum basics. Once those things are taken care of, hey, let's put a little bit of money to the side for a rainy day. Let's make sure if we do have debt, let's pay those debts down as quick as possible. And I know there's a lot of people that will argue with me about that and say, well, I use credit responsibly. And I get nervous about that, because it's like, I know it's the norm to have credit cards and to have car payments and everything, but the sense of freedom that you get, it's not just the sense of freedom, the actual physical freedom you get from being debt free allows you to breathe and grow, especially when you have a business. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know you're getting a taste of that now.
Fire, baby. It feels awesome.
Yeah. So once you get those things, once you organize your finances as far as what's coming in and what's going out, it's pretty easy. It's easy to set that plan up, because you could even use your bank account as like a ledger that goes into the past. You could literally go through every single month previously, write down all the things that are like fixed expenses, and then you could really start seeing, like, if you notice that you're eating out a lot, and let's just say you're fixed, right? Like you don't have a business. Let's just say you're working for somebody. It's not like you could go, well, I'm going to go get a quick job. And, when you have a business, it's great, because it's like you sit there and be like, I need to sell a little bit more work to get through some things. My wife's she's going to be starting her second semester getting her master's degree. And I'm like, well, I don't really feel like dipping into savings, and I just want to make sure I got enough money for this. So I'm going to go sell some more jobs. So I can go out and create money.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's like, when you start looking at your personal budget, get all that lined out, and then you could start seeing where you might be able to make some cutbacks, and you're like, yeah, I'm eating now way too much. I got to cook at home a little bit more. Maybe I don't need to buy the newest, fanciest phone. The one that I have is already good enough. Because once you start controlling not intentions, what's the word I'm looking for? Impulses.
Mm-hmm.
If you could get a control on impulse buying, you're going to also, that's going to carry over into your business as well. So when you start as a business owner, it's pretty much the same thing, except it's going to be a little bit different. You're going to be spending different categories. The things that you're spending money on are going to have different names. There's going to be different categories like marketing, your fixed expenses. You might have materials and supplies that you have to buy for your business. But if you could get a control in your personal life where you're not impulse buying things, it's going to translate into your business as well. Like, well, I didn't really need this piece of equipment, but I bought it just because I wanted it. We just came from a Quip Expo and we saw the new shiny John Deere things and I really like it. And I'm just going to go buy one without even thinking about it. It's like, yeah, but your old John Deere is still okay. Let's take a look. Can you afford this? You need to make the switch right now? So, keeping things like that in mind can help you stay financially secure.
Back to the personal stuff, John, what do you think is a good amount to be spending a month on food out or eating out or however you want to categorize that? And then how much should we be saving and investing a month? And where should that go? To a high yield savings account or into the stock market? Or can you give us, because I know you see a lot of numbers and crunch a lot of numbers. What you have a family of three. I have a family of one. But what's kind of the average for what you should be spending a month on groceries, what you should be spending a month on food out, eating out? How much should you be investing? Where should you be investing and saving and things of that nature? And what percentage of my income that I pay myself, let's say you pay yourself $6,000 a month, how much of that should go to what categories?
So again, this is going to be generalized because, again, you have yourself to take care of. I've got a family of three I got to worry about. Some people have a family of seven. So when you start breaking that down, first, I follow Dave Ramsey. I've been a fan of his since the late 90s. That's when I first heard of him. But following his baby steps is a very easy and effective way to save money. So, his rules are, you start with an emergency fund of $1,000. That's your baby emergency fund. That's going to help you get away from having to spend on credit cards and things like that while you're trying to pay down debt. The second thing is, he wants you to pay down your debt. You use that snowball. And then once you get that done, you then look towards having your real emergency fund, which is 3 to 6 months of expenses. So that number is going to be different for everybody. So if you're still paying debt, you're not going to be, you're not going to have a big mega savings account. It might be more than $1,000 just to kind of the way inflation's worked over the past 4 years. $1,000 doesn't get you as much mileage, if in case something happens with your car or, the fridge goes, the fridge breaks, the refrigerator breaks. You might need more than $1,000 in that initial savings account just to kind of give you a buffer from the real world. But once you get to the part where you're at right now, Paul, you've paid off your debts. You're sitting here going, okay, I have additional money, which isn't additional. It's the same money that you've been making this entire time. But now you get the chance to tell it where to go. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to investing, once you get past getting out of debt, it's recommended that you put at least 15% of your disposable income into retirement. Now that could be, I wouldn't really, high yield savings accounts and things like that, they're pretty low, to be honest with you. It's not like back in the day. And I'm talking, I remember when I was a kid growing up, a savings account used to have like an 8% return on it every year. I
Yeah,
have,
mine's 3.85
yeah.
high yield saving.
So I had, but you got to remember with the high yield saving, a lot of times you have to have a minimum in there. So it might require, something like $10,000 in that account at all times, and that $10,000 means zero in order for you to earn that interest, the 3.8%. So if you're in retirement, you're going to be looking for long-term things, and if you're going to make investments, I would probably maybe have my my emergency fund in a high yield savings account or a money market account that's going to, you say you have to have like a $10,000 minimum, and you say, well, it's going to cost me, $10,000 to have, 5 months of living expenses. Okay. I could put that in there because in case something goes wrong, I could pull that out because that money's still liquid. I don't get any penalties for withdrawing it. I could close that account if I need to, and it's not that big a deal. Or I could just take a little bit of money out of it. I might not get the higher percentage, but at least I still have a buffer. Okay. So when it comes to like your emergency funds, keep those liquid, keep those in savings accounts, keep those in money market accounts. I would avoid tying those up in like CDs and in the stock market because it takes a lot longer to get those things out. If your car breaks down tonight and you need money tomorrow, it's harder to pull it out of those other things without penalties. And sometimes it actually takes a few days to get that money. Whereas if you have a regular savings account or a money market account, you can just go to the bank and withdraw that. The 15% of savings going towards your long-term retirement, I would suggest things like a Roth IRA. You basically are paying the taxes up front now, but then when you go to take that money out when you retire or once you hit a certain age, that money comes out and it's tax-free. They don't tax it. So obviously there's a lot of different agencies, a lot of banks, a lot of different financial planners. They have products that you could. The thing with our Roth IRA is you actually have to like tell the money where to be.
Yeah, and this is for entertainment and educational purposes only.
Correct. I'm not telling you go, hey, invest in blah 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 blankety blank or this. We're doing like a broad stroke.
Right. The motivation is to encourage you to build that muscle of saving and investing. And there's better investments in savings that's going to give you a better interest return. But you don't want to get the paralysis analysis. You want to just start saving money and start investing money and get into that habit that, like Warren Buffett says, you don't save what's left over after you spend. You save first. You prioritize saving first, and then you spend. And if you don't have money to eat out because you have to put your investment in, that's more of a priority than living high on the hog.
Exactly, because $20, you spend $20 on a single meal, and you're never going to remember that meal unless something terribly goes wrong to make it memorable. But when it comes to, you could take that $20, which seems insignificant. If you just say, I'm going to take that $20 and throw it in the IRA, or I'm going to put it in some other investment, it'll pay dividends. It's going to make interest. It's going to be a slow burn, where because it is tied to the stock market, it will have ebbs and flows. But overall, when you play the long game, you should have a much higher return. Sometimes they say that over like a 12-year period of time, you could expect like maybe a 10 to 12% return on your money. So, and you also have to remember when you do that, it's compounding. It's not just I put like $1,000 in this year and that's all it's going to make. It's like, no, we have 1,000. And then if we're very consistent with that money, say it's $200 or whatever it might come out to per week, whatever that 15% allows you to do, it'll just keep growing and growing and growing, and it grows. Compound interest is amazing. It could grow so quickly. And then especially if you let it cook, you give it the time to cook, it'll mature and it'll be amazing, even with the dips and dives of the stock market.
Back to, were you going to say something there?
I was going to let you go.
Back to my example of a $6,000 take home income. I think that's reasonable for someone with a lawn care business.
Mm-hmm.
You're paying yourself. And Joey Coberly, my bookkeeper, one big mistake that he notices, and he takes care of over 50 different lawn businesses, is most of our clients, when they just getting started, they're not paying themselves a consistent amount each month, whether that's $5,000 or $6,000. It's just, they're more willy-nilly. Well, my kid's got to go to the orthodontist. I'm going to pull some money out. And, rent's due, got to pull some. And it's like they're winging it. So Joey, with his clients, he's like, no, let's establish, what are you paying yourself? Is it $4,000 a month, $5,000 a month, $6,000 a month, $7,000 a month? I mean, there's no, depending on the health of your business, but get into like a rhythm where you pay yourself the same amount every month so you can plan accordingly, both in your business and personal. But back to my $6,000 example, I did 15%. That was $900.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Roth IRA's limit for 2025 is a $7,000. You don't have unlimited deposit into the Roth IRA. There's a cap at 7,000. So 7,000 divided by 12, I believe, is $583, somewhere in that range. I did it a while back.
Mm-hmm.
So in the $6,000 budget, your take-home pay in your house, you're investing $900. You should prioritize that. If $583 a month is going into your Roth IRA, what's the plan for the other $327 or whatever it is? We'll call it $300.
Sure.
Where should that money be going once your initial emergency fund is packed?
So once you top off that secondary, that main emergency fund, now, Paul, you don't have to break it down evenly. If you have, if in your position where you say it's $6,000 a month is your pay, you're going to invest $900 every month. You could go ahead and put $900 a month until you cap out.
Okay.
And it's actually a smarter decision to do that because you're giving that extra little $300. It's not little, but it's an extra $300 and change to over that 583 that you're talking about. If you instead do 900 until you cap out, it will help. It's a tiny, minuscule amount, but it will actually make you more money that way because let's just say you start in January and you stop in August. That would probably cap you out for your IRA for that year. The rest of that, you could invest that in other things too. If you have, if we're following the Dave Ramsey model, once you invest 15% of your income, you don't have kids, but they would say, hey, put money towards the college fund for the kids. The next step would be to pay your house off. And then after that, you just give, you charity wise, but you still have money hanging around. So what do you do with it? There's other vehicles that you can go into. It's not just the Roth IRA. You can invest in, if you could contribute to a 401k or something like that. That's a little bit different. I'm not exactly a big fan of the 401ks, but I don't want to get into all the details about it. Again, this is for entertainment purposes. This is not me telling you what is the ultimate investment tool.
We are quite entertaining.
Yeah, we're going to be entertaining here.
Thanks for listening.
But you could also invest in. If you could find instead of just putting it into the IRA, you could also find additional mutual funds that you could invest in on their own.
So that's called a brokerage account. You'd have to open up a brokerage account first and then invest it from there.
Correct. So more than likely, the person, the whatever organization you open up your Roth IRA with, once you do that, then you could also go into. Trust me. Once you get into that, they're probably going to be trying to sell you other products. And I know it sounds weird when you say it that way, but that's how it is. It's like they almost turn into like insurance agents where they're trying to sell you other policies. If you have somebody that's good at that brokerage, they'll help you manage your own stock portfolio. And instead of investing in, again, this is just me. I'm not a big fan of just investing in stocks. I'd rather play the long game, and do mutual funds. And there are a lot out there that you can invest. You can research, and there's like 4 basic ones. It's just like this. There's the really safe ones. There's one that have higher risks. There's ones that are international and domestic. Okay, that's kind of like the 4 categories that you really put them into. So if you in your case, Paul, let's just use you as an example since you threw some numbers out. We got the $6,000 a month. We're going to say $900 a month is 15% of that. We max out your Roth IRA first, and then and if you had additional money above that, like say 6,000, your living expenses weren't the $5,000 that the 5,100 that's left over. You could still invest in those mutual funds. As a matter of fact, if you wanted to, you could in 1 month you could put like $2,000 into that IRA. It max it out as quick as you wanted to, and then start focusing on say like mutual funds.
Yeah, and the 6,000 example is more of like an industry average. If I feel like that's the average of what guys pay themselves and gals, but in my specific case, I mean, I was planning probably on January 1st, just taking 7,000 out of the business and putting it into. I do what's called a backdoor Roth IRA because my income is above. Thankfully, it's above the limit for a regular IRA. So I put it into a traditional IRA and then backdoored on in, converted into the Roth IRA. But I probably will do that on Jan 1 or Jan 2. Well, I don't know if weekend or whatever, but the first of the year. So that $900 won't necessarily go to the Roth IRA. That $900 on a $6,000, household income, that could all be available for the mutual fund. Or I'm just trying to get your thought of what you think is going to compound growth the best. So that 900 isn't going to the Roth IRA in my situation because, I'll probably max that out in January.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, since you mentioned it, okay, you talk to your accountant, but what you're talking about, the backdoor IRA, once you hit, I'm glad you're bringing it up because that's one of the drawbacks, or not drawbacks, but that's one of the sticky points with Roth IRAs. Once you make a certain amount of money, you can't contribute to it. Traditionally, you have to go to the traditional IRA, but like what you're talking about, the backdoor one, it's you need guidance in order to do it properly.
Yeah, and I did. I did it. I had a professional walk through all the steps, and it's basically you put it in your traditional IRA. It has a zero balance, and then the next day you transfer it into you convert it into a Roth IRA, and then they did it all for me, and it works. But that $900 a month at 15% of $6,000 take home pay, I just wanted to figure out John Pajak's educational and entertainment purposes advice of how do you turn that $900 a month into maximum. So we've already established putting it in a 3.85 or 3.6% savings account is not the best plan because there's opportunities out there where you can earn a higher return, such as the right stock, not individual stock, but right grouping of stocks in a mutual fund or ETF or something like that.
Yeah, it's again, this is it really has to be more of a personal thing that you have to look at, because you just have to know where you stand financially. And if you're at that point where you can invest, that there's multiple vehicles you can use to really take that money you've got, would have normally have just sitting in your bank account, and really make it work for you and make it work for your future. So that's a very important aspect that a lot of us don't look at until we're later on in our years. And it's like, man, if I would have been able to invest earlier, because time's on your side when it comes to investments. If you could have been 18 years old, and now see, I messed up, because like when I was 18, that's when Roth IRAs first appeared. Like my dad was telling me about it, and I'm like, because it's not like it's been around forever. It's only it's
in Senator William Roth or something like that.
Yeah,
his name.
In the scope of investments, it's really kind of a new kid to the block. It's in a sense. I mean, it's probably like 30. I'd say about 30 years old now, which sounds like a long time, but it really hasn't been that long. If I would have invested the maximum amount when I was 18, I think back then it was like maybe like $3,500 that you could max out at. But if I would have been consistent for 5 years and just invested the max amount and then never touched it again, never gave it any more money, I would, by the time I turned, 60, it would have accrued enough. It would have been in almost $2 million just sitting there because of the compound interest. If I started, say somebody's 35 years old, okay, and they're trying to catch up, they would have to pay the maximum amount every single month. And even if you could, once you get to a certain age, you could make makeup payments.
Mm-hmm.
You could add a little extra bonus. Like I forgot what the threshold is. It's like 59 or and a half, I think, when you could start doing like bonus payments. But you'll never catch up. But you could be paying for 20, 30, 25 years of payments, and you'll never catch up to what you could have done in the first 5 years of your earning career. Like once you turn 18, so it's amazing what compound interest could do for you.
Totally. Well, that was good, John.
Yeah. I and again, to go back to Mr. Coberly there, I 100% agree. If you have to pay yourself something, because as I help businesses, I find that there's so many of them that do not pay themselves. And like you mentioned, they just kind of take draws when they need it, or, oh, I'll be fine. They think that their profits are their pay. And that really skews your bottom line. If you're really trying to track your numbers and you're trying to find out how successful your business really is, if you're only taking profits and you're not compensating yourself, when you start going, oh, okay, we're scaling and I need more people, I need to replace myself. I need to take a hat off of my head. Okay, well, let's say office administrator. Okay, I'm going to actually get an office administrator. Well, dang, I got to pay for her now or him. It's like, where am I going to get this money? It's like it wasn't in our business budget, when it should have been part of like what you pay yourself. Or if you are replacing yourself as a technician, maybe you start out as technician pay. Well, pay yourself what you would pay a technician. You could always adjust it later and move up. But it's important to get, because that gives you a more clear picture of what your business actually costs to run and operate. So without that, you're kind of, again, we're playing the wet noodle game. We're throwing stuff up against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, that's so good. What else are you noticing, Pajak, with your work with clients with their numbers? Like what mistakes or areas of improvement are you noticing from your consulting work?
Besides, they're living in the present and in the past. And what I mean by that is they're not forecasting where they want to go. They're not projecting. They're only keeping their pricing like where they're at immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that goes back to the goals we were talking about before. It's, you know, they're just where they're at right now. They're only compensating for the equipment, the type of work that they're doing right now, not what they're going to be doing in the future. So when they do start to grow, it's really painful for them because it's like, okay, first a lot of times they don't have the capital they need to get equipment, hire new people, at least have a buffer for it. And then sometimes they're having to go back to their existing clientele and giving them a fairly large price increase because they weren't thinking far enough ahead down the road. And it's like an example, say they're working out of their garage. Okay. They think that's not on their list of expenses because they're like, well, it's my house. I'm paying the mortgage and my business could stay here for free. So I don't have to charge as much as my competitor does because I don't have office space. I don't have shop space. But then when they grow and they actually need it, they're like, oh man, I'm adding like, $1,200 a month to my fixed expenses. And what my rate I'm charging right now, it's not really cutting it. I'm going to have to rate, it's like they have to redo their numbers all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I find if you plan ahead, so like, especially right now we're in the winter season. For most of the guys, they're either in a really slow period of time or they might be in an off season altogether. Really go over your numbers and look at what you want to be, where you want to be 2 steps ahead. If that includes you moving to a shop space where you're going to have to pay more and you're going to have utilities with it and all these other expenses, make sure you are adjusting your prices to accommodate that. Even if you're not in there, I think guys that work out of their garage, hey, that's totally fine. But I think you're missing out on an opportunity to stay up to date with what the value of the service that you're providing. Because there's a lot of guys out there that know what their numbers are and their prices seem really high.
Mm-hmm.
And guys are like, I could do it for less. It's like, why? You're leaving money on the table. And not only that, you're hurting yourself and you're hurting the industry because everybody looks at you and maybe if, there's a majority of the workforce or the businesses in your area that all think that way, and everybody's expected value, your customers look at your pricing and say, well, this is what the status quo is. When I get a quote from a guy that's like $10, $15, $20 higher, well, that guy's crazy. When in actuality, the guys that are on the low end, they're the ones that are nuts. They're the ones that aren't, they're literally, I see a lot of turnover with those companies. And it's like everybody's always sitting right at that low level. It's like, you know what, if you raised your prices and you were goal driven, you would not only help yourself, but you would help the industry as well, because now you're actually just you're not even setting the bar, you're just at where the bar's at now.
So good. Our mutual friend, same initials as you, JP.
Oh yeah.
Jonathan Potoshnik, he said, it might've been at Naylor's LCR Summit, or at some point I heard him say when someone asked, hey, what should you charge? He's like, find out what the bigger companies in your area are charging and just charge what they're charging, because they've obviously figured it out of how they sustain all their overhead and keep good employees and all of that. And if you can have that pricing out of the gate, even if it seems like, wow, that's a lot for just a truck in the truck to be charging, then you can start growing your business and you can start attracting quality employees that you can pay appropriately, and you can start growing. But if you undercharge, like you said, it's so hard then to raise your prices. And once they're expecting you to do it at this amount, and you really can mess things up there.
Yeah, sorry, I had to switch cameras here. I agree with that, because yes, look at your competition to see what the current market value is. I wouldn't base it solely on that though, because there are some bigger companies that I've dealt with where I've helped coach them, and they still they weren't hitting the mark. Um, and I'm not saying that every single person is unique and they have their own, that everybody has to be obscenely different when it comes to pricing. But sometimes the bigger guys can do it for a lot less, because even though I'm not saying a lot less, but it's kind of funny when you start out, everything, like if the solo guy, everything, all the fixed expenses, every single expense is focused on that one guy. So it all lands on his shoulders. When you start having like a 2-man crew, okay, well now it's divided by 2, to a degree. The fixed expenses, your marketing, your, direct labor, those things get a little bit, the cost gets a little softer. It's an easier load to carry because there's more people in there. There is sort of a scaling metric when you have, let's just say it turns into 10 people, a 10-man crew, or, multiple crews that you got 10 employees total. Maybe it's 5, 10, 2-man crews, right? Well, your fixed overhead, yeah, it's going to raise up a little bit because maybe you have to have bigger office space. Maybe you have to have a bigger shop. You're going to have different equipment expenses and things like that. But the overall, it's like their prices actually start to come lower because there's more shoulders to carry the weight. And that's why I'm saying it's like be cautious, because like there's some other big companies that I've helped out. I wouldn't say they're big. Okay, they're doing like $2 million, but if you really look at like small businesses, that's still considered a small business. It's funny to me, like even what we multi-million-dollar companies that are making like $14 million, they're still technically a small business. But anyway, their costs to actually do the work, they could get it done a little bit lower, but you still want to have good margins. Okay. Do you remember when I was geeking out years and years ago when Brickman and
Valley Crest
merged?
Oh yeah.
I was like, okay, and now I'm a nerd about it. I was looking at it, and I was telling you and several other guys that we all hung out with. I'm like, I love this. They're going public, so I could actually. They have to release their numbers. They have to release their numbers because they're publicly traded. And I was shocked. Everybody's like, "Oh, we're going to use Brickman as the status quo." That what they're a huge company, so if we charge what they're charging, we're going to make money. And I looked at it, and I remember calculating it out, and it came out to like 1.9% margin. And I'm like, of course, it's a multi-million-dollar company, but at the same time, it's like 1.9%, guys, 2%, 2.1%. It was like, that's terrifying to me, because that margin is so small. And if other guys, smaller guys that don't get the leverage that they do because they're a big company and they're trying to shoot for the same pricing, they're going to go bankrupt, because the small guy can't operate at that low of a margin, because it literally takes one job to put you at either break even or put you in the red. So that's the only hang up I really have about just basing my numbers purely off of my competition. Because for a big major company, they could absorb that. They could be okay with that. But when it comes to the smaller guys, it's like, you really need to know, you need to know your numbers. You need to understand what it costs you to operate. And then you could be Babe Ruth in your business. You could point and say, I'm going to shoot for a 30% margin. Does that mean you're going to get it all the time? No. But if you came in and you're trying very hard and you streamlined your business and you had your pricing right and you had your production times aligned for the most part, and you started coming in consistently at like 26% margin, well, hey, it's not the 30 that we were shooting for, but 26% margin on a service-based business is pretty good. You know, you have enough room in your business to not only take care of all the mouths you have to feed, and that's including yourself, all of your employees, taking care of your business, which is a cash-eating monster if you let it go. But you know, you get all the fixed expenses are paid, all of your variables are covered, and especially marketing. We got to talk. People forget about marketing to get new blood, new clients into our business. But once all that's paid for, and if let's just say it turns out you got 26%, guess what? You could take those profits, you could reinvest them into the business, or as the owner, you distribute them among the employees and take a bigger chunk for yourself, which then again makes your personal goals of having a fantastic retirement even that much easier.
For the new guys that are in year one, or maybe they just finished year one and they're in the winter now. 75, by the way, John, today. I was just,
oh my goodness.
Before we hopped on, I was on a walk sweating, and I was like, I don't know if I could tell Pajak or not. 75 and sunny, and it feels hot, but I guess 75's, I'm not going to complain because it's quite cooler up there.
We had a heat wave today. It came in at 54.
Okay.
So it was pretty nice. We were locked in the teens for about 2 weeks. So it's kind of nice. We went to church, and I actually went and washed the car with the family, and then enjoyed the warmth for a little while.
Nah, that sounds freezing. 54. Well, here's my question for the new guy or gal. Year one, year two. What is the average man-hour rate? And I know it's different in like a California and a New York versus in the Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas rate. But if someone's just starting out and they're in year one, what's kind of a baseline per man-hour rate that's somewhat industry average just to get them started?
It depends on which service line you're in as well.
We'll do mow, edge, trim, blow.
Okay, so in just mowing maintenance, mow, edge, trim, blow, I don't care where you're located. If you can't, the tried and true, like this is what the average used to be. They used to say $1 a minute. Well, I don't know if you've looked at the price of the equipment that we operate, in the past, even just 1 year. Go back like 3 years, it's jumped so much. It's like we love all of the fun, new, shiny, sexy stuff, right? We love the equipment. The problem is, it doesn't care if you're in Arkansas or if you're in California. The price is pretty much the same all around. And these things are, I've invested more money in equipment than I ever have for any vehicle that I've bought for myself. So, that $1 a minute it's no bueno, man. It doesn't work. I don't care. If you are running that and you think it's working for you, really take a deep dive. For just maintenance per man hour, I would have to say you have to be upwards of like $70-$80 minimum per man hour. And it's really not that hard to achieve it once you start to break it down, because if you understand what your production rates are, so if you could, let's just say your average lawn is $50, okay? Technically, to make the math easy, let's just say it's $100 a man hour, okay? You could do 2 lawns in an hour. If you're doing it solo, well, that's probably average, But if you have a 2-man crew, like with us, I know that when we had our mowing division, we could do I know it sounds funny, okay, but we could do about 3.5 lawns per hour. And you're like, well, how do you do 3.5 lawns? Well, within that hour, we were able to get 3 full lawns done, and then we were starting on another one, and it just kind of bled into the next hour. So it sounds crazy to be like, well, how do you get a fraction of a lawn in an hour. Well, it's cumulative. You need to understand how that works for your production numbers. But if I were charging, I mean, you could charge $60 an hour, but the thing is, that would mean like each one of those lawns, you would be doing them for like right around $20 an hour, or $20 for service, which is way below the value. So it's not that it's a loaded question, but you have to look at what kind of properties are you going after? What are your expenses? But if I'm going to give you a new like generic standard, I would have to say it's got to be at around $75, $80 per man hour for that. It surprises a lot of people. They think that that's too high. They think I can't make that. But when you start breaking it down, if you had a 2-man crew and it was $80 a guy, it's $160 worth of revenue that needs to be brought into the company. And that's not break even. That's probably, with some profit involved in there. But if you think about it, if you're charging, you got a 2-man crew and you're able to get, say 3 lawns done. If you're charging $50, well, you're still you're $10 shy, right? But like with our company, we could do 3.5 10,000 square foot lawns within an hour. So, you're above that 160 mark. If you're charging 50 and you get that half, right? You're sitting at like 175 an hour of revenue coming in, averaged out. So that fits that model. So it's like, okay, yeah, we could charge $50 a lawn doing that because it's going to be equal to or more than what our costs are, including the profits.
Very insightful there, John. And I wish when I was starting, I would have had somebody break that down to me. My prices were way too low. Well, John, if someone wants more of these nuggets in your business knowledge and insights, how can they listen to you or follow you, or what resources do you have to offer, and shout out your podcast and all that? How can people get in the John Pajak's world?
Get into the John Pajak world, you can go to Profits with Pajak, which is the podcast. We do 3 shows a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's available on all the platforms. I don't care if you like Apple or Spotify, Amazon, whatever you like, it's there. All you got to do is put Profits with Pajak in there. If you want to follow me, I do have Instagram and Facebook. It's all John Pajak. And if you're looking for one-on-one coaching, this is something that I'm really looking for. It's actually exciting because I've been doing it for a long time, but I've been improving. I came out with a lot of new cool stuff, but you could get some information at johnpajak.com, and it's spelled JOHNPAJAK.com. You could go there. I have my budgets, break-evens, and bottom lines workshop available. I also do some training for CRMs and business development there as well.
Cool. And then in person, you're headed to Atlanta for Synced Live in January, and to Birmingham, Alabama for the Lawn Care Life Conference on February 21st and 22nd. Is that your upcoming schedule?
Absolutely. I can't wait. Okay, don't get me wrong. I'm looking forward to Synced Live. That's that's been a fun one for the past few years. We go, we have Pod Row there, yourself, Naylor Taliaferro. I'll be there. I know that there's going to be several other podcasters there. So it's a nice little trade show, and love to see you guys there. But I am really stoked to be at the Lawn Care Life Conference again. That was a really, really great experience last year. I know it was paused for a couple of years, and you and Jason were able to bring it back for 2023, 2024, because it happened earlier, February of this year. This in 2025, I am really excited about it because I'm looking forward to the bonus day that you guys have added because Brandon Gray, who is linked with Greg Crabtree of Simple Numbers fame. That is he, Greg Crabtree is like one of those guys that I look up to. I saw him live in 2017, and the fact that Brandon Gray is one of his like right hand men when it comes to teaching that type of thing, that's in my wheelhouse. That's the thing. That's the type of information that gets me excited. So, if it gets me excited and I'm all about numbers and I'm all about making more profits in my business and helping others facilitate their goals and to get more profitable, I think you have to sign up for it, because you already got a long list of presenters that are going to be there that, a lot of familiar faces. You got Alan Hain and Jason Creel, Paul, yourself, a friend, Andy Mulder, who's actually local to me. It's funny. We always joke. We never actually see each other when we're at home. We always see each other when we travel across country. But I'm stoked about the Long Care Life Conference, and I can't wait for it to happen. And if you could swing it, I would highly recommend getting the bonus day, because this is something that has not been offered before. And that VIP experience, besides the knowledge I'm pretty sure you're going to get from it, it's going to be well worth the time and the investment to get there the extra day. I know whenever I do any of these extra like mastermind groups or extra the VIP experiences, it doesn't even matter about the price, because the value that I get from it, I could take when I go home. Most of the time, I take one thing that I learn, and it helps me make so much more money, and it also helps me, improve other people's lives. So, I'm stoked to go. I'm glad that you guys are doing it again. I'm promoting that on Profits with Pajak, the podcast. I want people to buy tickets for it, and it's not because I'm not getting anything out of it. I come to these because they're full of value, and it might be that one little thing you might not think about that changes your perception and your aspect on life, and how you can make your business so much better.
Amen. Very well said, John. And I'm looking forward to it. For Christmas, we're doing 30% off your tickets. So you can save off the VIP experience ticket, 30% off. Just use the coupon code Christmas. And it's going to be here before we know it, February 21st and 22nd. It's right outside of Birmingham, Alabama, at Jason's family property. And we'd love for you guys to join us down in Sweet Home, Alabama. I'm really looking forward to it. So it's going to be good times in Alabama, lots of knowledge, lots of networking, lots of fellowship. We're going to be doing a pizza party on Saturday night. Last year, I think we went and got barbecue with Jonas Olson and Naylor and Jason. Mm-hmm. And then other guys, Kevin Salters was telling me a group went downtown and grabbed something. I think Pookie and Ben Naiman and those guys went. So anyway, instead of everyone kind of going here and going there and going, it's hard to communicate with 200 people. We're just going to order a bunch of pizzas. I think Crest Commercial is going to sponsor the after party dinner. So, or not, I don't know if you want to call pizza dinner, but we're going to get a bunch of pizzas and just hang out Saturday night as anybody who wants to after hours, after the event, like officially ends around 5. We're just going to order a bunch of pizzas and hang out in that main room. Probably start tearing down and hanging out. So that'll be fun. But that way everyone can, Ben Naiman and Lamont and Kevin Salters and Alan Lemire's coming, all these guys, instead of everyone kind of, hey, where are you going to dinner? Hey, where are you going to dinner? We'll just all have dinner together and eat pizza and chit chat and have fun.
Absolutely. Sometimes those are, you can't put a price on those experiences, because the networking that happens after a lot of these events, it turns into long-term lifetime friends and resources as well. So I highly encourage you go. Get Long Care Life Conference, man. That's the one to go to.